Did you know that California just passed some of the strictest gun laws in the entire country? And this one change will shock you? Imagine waking up one morning to find out that your right to carry a gun could be taken away without you even realizing it. Or what if your firearm collection suddenly becomes illegal because of a new law you didn't even know about? This isn't just another law update, it's a game changer that could affect millions of gun owners. With new restrictions on everything from magazine sizes to private sales, California is tightening the noose. What does this mean for you? Are you at risk of being impacted by these changes? Stick with us as we uncover the 10 most shocking updates to California's gun laws and find out exactly how they could change your life forever. Trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Ever thought about carrying a firearm for personal protection? Well, California just made it a lot harder for regular citizens to do so. In the past, getting a concealed carry permit was a straightforward process in some parts of the state. However, with the latest changes, California has raised the bar in ways that might surprise you. Now, gun owners are facing stricter qualifications just to carry a concealed weapon legally. Gone are the days when you could simply apply and be approved based on self-defense needs. Under the new rules, applicants must demonstrate a good cause for carrying a firearm, which means personal protection may no longer be enough. The law has now given local authorities the power to decide whether your reasons are valid, and these decisions can vary wildly from county to county. This has led to widespread confusion and frustration, as the definition of good cause can be vague and subjective. For instance, in some counties, it might take proof of a direct threat to your safety, while in others, you might be denied altogether, even if you've had no previous criminal record or violent history. Imagine you live in a high-crime area, but your application for a permit gets rejected simply because the authorities feel you haven't provided sufficient evidence of a personal threat. What makes this even more concerning is that, in the past, California had already been one of the most restrictive states when it came to gun ownership and concealed carry permits. This latest change essentially closes the door even tighter for law-abiding citizens seeking to protect themselves. If you've ever considered concealed carry for personal safety, or simply believed it was your right to defend yourself, you'll be taken aback by how much harder it has become. The question now is, how will this affect gun owners who don't fit into the newly defined good cause categories? The law is reshaping the way we think about personal protection in ways no one expected. California is tightening its grip on firearm regulations with an expansion of its assault weapon ban, and it's more extensive than many gun owners realize. Previously, certain military-style firearms were classified as assault weapons and banned from sale in the state. However, this new update redefines what constitutes an assault weapon, adding even more firearms to the list of those that are now prohibited. But what's truly shocking is how vague the new definitions can be. The law has broadened its scope to include more semi-automatic rifles, pistols, and shotguns, even those that may have previously been deemed legal based on their features or function. For example, the state has now included guns with certain features like detachable magazines, or even just the design of the grip, into the assault weapon category. What this means is that many legally owned firearms could now be considered illegal under this new law, even though they were purchased years ago with the understanding that they were compliant. Gun owners who may have carefully followed previous regulations could now find themselves in possession of an illegal firearm without realizing it. The consequences for owning an assault weapon in California are severe. Penalties for violating the ban range from hefty fines to possible jail time, and gun owners might be required to turn over their weapons to authorities or face even more legal trouble. This doesn't just affect people who buy guns moving forward, it's retroactive, meaning people who've owned these weapons for years could now find themselves at risk of facing criminal charges. For many gun enthusiasts and collectors, this change is particularly shocking. Some people have spent thousands of dollars on firearms, believing they were within the law, only to find out that they are now essentially forced to relinquish their property. The real question becomes, is this ban truly about safety, or is it an overreach that restricts the rights of law-abiding citizens who wish to own legal firearms? This shift in the law is bound to stir intense debate, and it's one that's likely to shape California's gun laws for years to come. Imagine this. You've owned a firearm for years, perhaps even decades, and it's never been an issue. You purchased it legally, took care of it, and used it responsibly. But now, California has passed a law requiring all firearms, no matter their age, to be registered with the state. That means even if your gun was inherited or passed down through generations, you now must officially declare it to the authorities. This change has taken many gun owners by surprise, as the new law aims to close what state legislators see as a loophole in firearm tracking. The problem? It's not as simple as just filling out a form. California has imposed a complicated, time-consuming process for registering older firearms that were not previously included in the state's database. Gun owners must submit detailed documentation for each firearm, which could involve submitting photographs, proof of purchase, and possibly even undergoing a background check to ensure the weapon hasn't been involved in any illegal activity. For firearms that were passed down or bought privately, finding proof of ownership can be nearly impossible. The financial burden of registering older firearms is significant as well. Fees for registration can add up quickly, and if you own multiple guns, those costs can become prohibitive. For collectors or those with large inventories, the sheer volume of paperwork required to comply could be overwhelming. On top of that, there's the concern that once these firearms are registered, they are now part of a state database, which could make them susceptible to future restrictions or even confiscation. What many gun owners are asking is, what happens if they don't comply? While the law offers a registration period for owners to get their firearms registered, after that, failure to do so could result in legal action, fines, or the potential loss of a prized firearm. The requirement to register all guns, regardless of their age or history, seems to many like another layer of government control. It raises serious questions about privacy, ownership, and the rights of responsible gun owners. As this law moves forward, it's clear that it will spark a heated debate about personal freedom versus public safety. Picture this. You've spent years building your firearm collection, carefully selecting magazines that offer a higher round capacity for self-defense or target practice. Now, imagine finding out that the magazine you've relied on for years is suddenly illegal in California. That's exactly what's happening with the state's new magazine capacity limits. California has implemented some of the strictest laws in the country on magazine sizes, capping the number of rounds a magazine can hold at just 10 rounds. This new restriction affects a wide variety of firearms, from rifles to pistols, and it's making gun owners across the state uneasy. For many, this change hits hard because it targets the core functionality of their firearms. Magazines holding more than 10 rounds are now classified as illegal, and gun owners must either modify their existing magazines to comply with the new law or turn them over to authorities. If you've ever used a higher capacity magazine for self-defense or to improve your shooting experience, you can imagine how frustrating this could be. The decision to restrict magazine size, however, isn't just about what's legal or illegal. It's part of a much broader conversation about public safety and firearm regulation. Some argue that reducing magazine capacity could make shooting less lethal in dangerous situations, as it would force the shooter to reload more frequently, reducing the potential for harm. Others, however, view the law as an unnecessary restriction that infringes on the rights of law-abiding gun owners. Critics argue that it punishes people who are simply trying to own firearms for protection or recreational purposes, while criminals, who typically don't obey the law, will find ways around these limits. For gun enthusiasts and sports shooters, the implications are even more significant. These restrictions can drastically affect shooting competitions and the availability of ammunition for practice. Some feel that the law makes responsible gun owners bear the burden of others' actions. What's clear is that this new magazine capacity limit is shaking up the entire gun community and raises a serious question. How much control should the state have over how many rounds a magazine can hold? This change is forcing people to reconsider their approach to firearm ownership and is a reminder that California's gun laws are constantly evolving. In a move that many gun owners find both surprising and controversial, California has now passed a law that mandates all firearms be stored in approved gun safes when not in use. While the intention behind this new law is clear, to reduce accidental shootings and ensure firearms are safely stored, its impact on gun owners is significant. If you're someone who's kept a firearm in a drawer, cabinet, or another secure spot for years, this new requirement could change the way you think about gun ownership forever. For starters, the law specifies that all guns, whether handguns, rifles, or shotguns, must be stored in a locked container that meets the state's safety standards. What qualifies as a safe under the new rules? It's not just any old lockbox or cabinet. The safe must meet specific security standards that ensure it can't be easily accessed by unauthorized individuals, such as children or burglars. This means purchasing a certified gun safe, which can cost hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars for higher-end models, becomes a financial burden that many gun owners didn't anticipate. The law doesn't just impact new gun owners either. Longtime gun owners, many of whom have safely kept firearms for years without incident, are now required to change the way they store their weapons. The mandate may seem like a simple safety measure, but the costs associated with buying, installing, and maintaining a proper safe could be out of reach for some gun owners. For others, it may mean restructuring entire homes to accommodate a bulky gun safe that can hold multiple firearms. In addition to the financial cost, there's also the issue of convenience. A locked safe may make accessing your firearm more difficult in an emergency, especially if you need it for self-defense. It raises a critical question. How do we balance safety with the right to protect ourselves in urgent situations? While the law aims to reduce accidental shootings, it forces gun owners to navigate a fine line between being responsible and facing new restrictions that could limit their ability to access their weapons quickly. This is one of the most intrusive changes to California's gun laws, and it's leaving many gun owners wondering how much longer their freedoms will be respected. Imagine this. You've made the decision to purchase a firearm, gone through all the paperwork, and are waiting for your background check to be processed. But now, California's new regulations have dramatically increased the wait time for background checks. What was once a fairly quick process, taking a few days or even hours in some cases, can now stretch on for weeks or even longer. This seemingly small change is causing major headaches for both gun buyers and sellers alike, and it's stirring up serious concerns about efficiency and accessibility within the state's already strict gun control framework. The background check delays are primarily due to overburdened state systems and new requirements that must be met before a firearm can be sold to a civilian. California's Department of Justice, DOJ, which handles these background checks, has struggled to keep up with the increased volume of firearm purchases and transfers in the state, particularly with the latest surge in interest among first-time buyers. As a result, the state's background check system has become slower and less responsive, leading to frustration among gun owners who are waiting to legally take possession of their new firearms. For many, this delay is more than just an inconvenience. It's a serious issue when it comes to personal security. If you've gone through the effort to purchase a firearm for self-defense and are now left waiting for weeks, it's hard to shake the feeling that the state is delaying your right to protect yourself. And it's not just about new purchases. Private party transfers, where guns are sold between individuals, are also facing these prolonged wait times, making it increasingly difficult for people to sell or trade firearms within the state. This raises some uncomfortable questions. How long should it take for a law-abiding citizen to receive a legal firearm? While the delays are meant to ensure public safety, they also put a strain on the rights of responsible gun owners. For some, these delays could be a deal breaker, especially if they rely on timely access to a firearm for personal protection. The real concern is whether these delays will continue to worsen as California's gun laws become even more restrictive. If you thought buying or selling a gun between private individuals was a simple and straightforward process, think again. California has introduced stricter regulations on private firearm sales, which means that even transactions between friends, family, or neighbors now require significant oversight. Under the new law, anyone attempting to buy or sell a firearm privately must go through a background check, even if they are transferring ownership within their own social circle. Gone are the days when you could casually hand over a weapon to a friend or relative. Now, these private sales are subject to the same bureaucratic scrutiny as transactions at a licensed gun store. This change is alarming for many gun owners, particularly those who were used to a more informal process of selling or transferring firearms. The mandatory background check requirement creates extra steps in the process, including filling out paperwork and going through the state's Department of Justice for approval. This not only adds time and effort to what used to be a simple transfer, but it also imposes additional costs on individuals who may not have budgeted for the expenses involved in the transaction. Fees for background checks, paperwork, and administrative processing can add up quickly, making the process more burdensome. The impact of these restrictions is felt particularly by gun owners who wish to pass down firearms to family members. What was once a private, personal exchange between loved ones has now become a heavily regulated event, and the process can feel dehumanizing for those simply looking to keep firearms within their families. Moreover, the new law complicates gun sales at gun shows or between strangers. Private sales are often seen as a way to keep the market accessible and flexible. But with these new rules, the process has become more restrictive, taking away some of the freedoms that California gun owners once enjoyed. For many, the new law raises important questions about the right to transfer ownership freely. While the goal may be to prevent illegal firearms from circulating, the law places unnecessary burdens on law-abiding citizens. As California continues to clamp down on gun ownership, these restrictions make it harder for responsible gun owners to make private legal sales, further complicating their rights. What if the government offered you money for your guns? Sounds strange, right? But California is ramping up its firearm buyback programs as part of its larger strategy to reduce the number of guns on the streets. This incentive-based program allows gun owners to voluntarily hand over their firearms in exchange for cash, no questions asked. While the idea might seem appealing to some, offering a chance to get rid of an old weapon for a decent sum of money, it's stirring up a lot of concerns among gun owners and Second Amendment advocates. The programs are being promoted as a public safety initiative, aiming to reduce gun violence by taking firearms out of circulation. However, many are questioning the effectiveness of such programs. Critics argue that while it might seem like a good idea to remove guns from dangerous individuals, buyback programs often don't target the criminals who misuse firearms. Instead, they end up focusing on law-abiding citizens who are essentially incentivized to give up their weapons. What happens to the guns surrendered in these buybacks? Some argue that they are simply destroyed, making it impossible to trace or even repurpose the firearms. Others fear that privacy concerns could arise from the government collecting personal data tied to firearm ownership, opening the door to future restrictions or confiscations. Additionally, the amount of money offered in buyback programs can often seem low compared to the value of the firearms being turned in. For some gun owners, it's a tough decision. Sell a weapon they've invested in, or hold on to it for the sake of personal security or sentimental value. The financial incentive may seem appealing at first, but many are skeptical about whether these buyback programs are simply a way for the state to tighten its control over firearm ownership. One of the most pressing concerns is whether these programs actually reduce crime rates or simply push the problem of illegal firearms elsewhere. If the goal is truly public safety, how effective are these programs at addressing the real issues behind gun violence? While well-intentioned, the truth is that these firearm buyback programs may not have the impact they promise, and in many ways, they feel like just another measure in California's larger strategy to restrict gun ownership. Imagine if someone you know, a family member, or even a close friend, could petition the court to have your firearms confiscated simply because they believe you pose a threat. That's the reality with California's expanding red flag laws, which allow individuals, often family members or law enforcement, to request a temporary gun confiscation order if they think you may be a danger to yourself or others. Originally introduced to prevent gun violence in extreme cases, the law is now being broadened, and it's leaving many gun owners wondering, how easy is it to abuse this system? The expanded red flag law allows for a broader pool of people to petition for the removal of firearms. Law enforcement, healthcare providers, and even co-workers could potentially be involved in initiating a petition to strip you of your guns. In some cases, all it takes is a claim of mental instability, a difference of opinion, or a disagreement about personal behavior to trigger a petition that could result in the temporary seizure of your firearms. This drastic action is often taken without due process, meaning the individual facing the petition doesn't have to be notified or given a chance to defend themselves before their rights are infringed upon. For many, this raises serious concerns about the abuse of power. It's frightening to think that someone could make an accusation, and as a result, you could be forced to turn over your firearms without any evidence of criminal behavior or violent intent. The law, while designed to prevent tragedy, risks becoming a weapon in personal disputes, where individuals could leverage the law to remove firearms from people with whom they have conflicts, even if there is no real danger involved. What makes these laws even more concerning is that seized firearms may be permanently lost, especially if the individual petitioning the court convinces a judge that the person is a risk. While the intention behind red flag laws is to protect public safety, they have the potential to violate due process rights and infringe upon the Second Amendment protections. The expanding reach of these laws is a serious concern for anyone who values the right to own and use firearms responsibly. They raise the fundamental question: how far is too far when it comes to restricting gun ownership? If you've ever attended a gun show in California, you know that it's a place where firearm enthusiasts can meet, trade, and purchase guns in a controlled environment. But with the state's new restrictions on gun shows, that once simple experience has become far more complicated. California is rolling out tighter regulations that are making it more difficult for individuals to buy, sell, and trade firearms at these events, and it's leaving many gun owners questioning whether their access to firearms is being unduly restricted. Under the new law, gun shows are now subject to stricter oversight. Not only are vendors required to meet more stringent background check requirements for each individual buyer, but now all transactions that take place at gun shows must go through registered dealers. This means that even if you're buying or selling a firearm from another private individual, the deal must go through a licensed seller and be subject to the same paperwork and waiting periods required in regular gun stores. For those who are used to buying or selling firearms directly between private individuals at these events, this change introduces a layer of bureaucracy that could make the entire process feel cumbersome and intrusive. One of the most significant concerns about these new restrictions is the impact on gun show attendance. With the added paperwork, fees, and longer waiting periods, many gun enthusiasts are now questioning whether the experience of attending a gun show is still worth it. Vendors are also feeling the strain, as the added administrative burden could increase the cost of doing business, which may be passed on to buyers in the form of higher prices. While these changes are justified by some as a way to prevent illegal firearms from being sold at gun shows, others feel they're simply another way to make gun ownership more difficult. The truth is that these new restrictions could lead to a significant decline in the accessibility and availability of firearms for law-abiding citizens. Gun shows, which once served as a way for responsible individuals to come together and exchange firearms, are now becoming increasingly regulated in ways that limit the freedom of those who simply want to buy or sell legally. It's clear that this is yet another move in California's broader strategy to restrict firearm access, and for many, it's the final straw. California's gun laws are evolving rapidly, and these 10 shocking changes are just the tip of the iceberg. Whether it's the expanded assault weapon bans, increased background check delays, or tighter restrictions on gun shows, the impact on gun owners is undeniable. What do you think? Are these changes justified, or do they go too far in limiting your rights? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more updates on gun laws and how they could affect you. Stay informed, stay prepared, and keep the conversation going.